All right, I don't even know if we should talk about market trends because it's been sideways trading for the longest time. If there are any gains, they're modest gains. If there are any losses,
Yes.
they are modest losses. Do you have an opinion?
Yes. Well, I would say with the exemption of a few, like today, Bamburi Cement was one of the few shares that have shown a positive growth between of about 10 shillings growth from 155 to about 165. But the rest of the market has actually been very, very dormant somewhat. But we have to look at it also that we are just getting out of the long holiday period, but also the markets have been very, very pressured because inflation is increasing. Sugar has gone up.
Yeah.
In fact, the price of a kilo of sugar is now almost 240 shillings, which is a far cry from about 110 shillings about 2 or 3 months before. So with all that having in place, there's still some positive signs. The tourism sector has shown positive trends in terms of the numbers that have come in, and that would mean we need to look at TPS, Serena and the rest, because it means the revenue has actually increased on their part. But the cost of doing business may or less erode that profit for that matter.
Let's talk about EABL. They've been in the news, and we do know that compared to last year, very, very modest growth at about 2%. They had warned, though, in a cautionary that there would be accounting losses because of this whole issue around the buyback from Serengeti and SAB. And also the operating climate's been a lot more challenging, obviously, with inflation and also issues around beer pricing. What do you make of EABL?
Well, it's interesting because similarly, just a day yesterday, they featured an article that showed that actually Kenyans are partaking more of beer, they're taking more beers. I think it's the environment in which they're operating, because you have to understand, one, there was a law that was implemented which curtails the drinking hours, as opposed to before where certain establishments or places where people would be entertained and partake in alcohol would actually not remain open for 24 hours.
Yeah.
But now the timings have been reduced and regulation, and this has actually affected a lot of them. Then two, you have to understand, again, we go back to the whole issue of whenever the economy is not doing properly, or whenever you find inflation, a lot of things are switched from day to day and they become more like luxury. So if occasionally one used to partake of their favorite drink between Monday and Friday, maybe after hours, now this has been minimized to maybe over the weekends or occasionally. And that also would have a knock-on effect in terms of sales.
What about input costs there, Waiyaki? Because we do know, obviously, in making beer, and I'm not an expert, but you do use wheat products, for instance, and we've seen the volatility of the wheat price internationally and the drought conditions as well in eastern Kenya. What does that mean for their operating profits going forward?
Well, other than that, there's also the element of cost of production. Electricity has not been coming in very well. It's not been cheap for that matter. Like you said it properly, with drought has a knock-on effect also on certain other things, farming on one. Then two, also the incentives. The farmers, many of them, because you know wheat is affected instantly by drastic weather patterns, and we've been actually having very, very different weather patterns from before. Actually, we've moved from our traditional weather patterns where right now would be in the sunny period or what we'd call the summer, but actually we are experiencing the wet period, the intermittent rains in certain areas, and in other areas it gets extremely cold. So this also would have an effect in terms of the amount of wheat or barley that would be available, and in essence EABL may be forced to actually import, and that may have that effect on increasing the cost of production. Okay,
any opinions on Mumia's profit growth of 23%, and sugar prices set to rise?
Yes, sugar prices are yet to rise, but also Mumia's has taken the step to assure that there is no shortage of sugar. They closed their plant for 1 month, and this has had a knock-on effect because Mumia's has 60% of the sugar market in Kenya in terms of it's actually able to produce and control 60% of the market. But owing to that close of the factory for renovation, this has actually affected drastically with certain sectors saying that the sugar is not available. And actually Mumia's taking steps to now become a distributor and distribute directly to the consumer to avoid that whole issue.